Salam Sejahtera, very good afternoon to all. Thank you for being a part of this webinar organized by Oil and Gas Asia alongside its key partners, the Malaysian Oil and Gas Services Council, MOGSC, and is supported by MATRADE and MPRC. Thank you for being a part of this webinar organized by Oil and Gas Asia alongside its key partners, the Malaysian Oil and Gas. Before we begin, please take note that all participants are muted and the chat box is now closed. Please feel free to write in your questions at the Q&A section. They will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Moving forward, we have an amazing lineup of speakers for you today. Mr. Jai Shankar from MATRADE, Mr. Juarez from VROC, Mr. Fadlan from Petronas, and last but not least, IR Asa from ProAid. To kick off the webinar, allow me to introduce you to our moderator, the CTO of Reservoir Link Solutions, MOGSC Executive Committee, and our key partner in leading the Innovation Awards program, Encik Anwar. Dear Anwar, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you Derek for the introduction, and I would like to formally welcome all the attendees to the webinar. This is our inaugural seminar. It's a series of webinars on innovation. So we have a distinguished panel of speakers today. I would like to thank all the speakers to spare the time during the working day. And also thanking our partners, Informa and supporting organization, which is MOGSC, MPRC, MATRADE, and as well as Petronas. So the intention of this webinar is actually put together to share valuable information experiences from distinguished individuals who had proven their contribution to the sector in oil and gas in Malaysia, and particularly in the segment of technology and also local capability here. So they will share remarkable passion from a community of oil and gas and working group within the oil and gas sector in Malaysia. So this webinar is spiced up by various background and also variety of the topics that we would like to share with you. So without further ado, let me take you through set the theme and also a little bit of introduction to start with. Now, my name is Anwar. I'm currently working as a CTO for Reservoir Link Energy Berhad. I'm also the executive committee for MOGSC, which stands for Malaysia Oil and Gas Service Council. I do involve in lots of other organizations, which is social as well as promoting technological solution to the industry. It is actually our hope that amidst the challenges we face today, in the unprecedented economical and social challenges, we want to spread a positive vibe across the world by talking about innovation, because innovation has been part and parcel of us. There was definitely not a bad time or good time for innovation. It is always any time. And innovation has actually born with human being. So throughout the evolution of human being, we have actually come through a great deal and great length and great complexity of life, which we see today, is all attributed to the innovation and our capability, which is naturally born to us. Now, to set the scene, I would like to just differentiate a little bit of about invention, innovation, and technology. So invention, usually a product or introduction of a process for the first time. Typically, in today's modern era, it is usually worthy of patent, which means that it's the first time being introduced, and it could be an application knowledge or fundamental knowledge. Whereas innovation is an improvement that make a significant contribution to us. An example will be Apple mobile phone. So because the mobile phone technology has already existed, and stepwise improvement has been introduced to you by various technology providers. And finally, the technology is usually a branding of what happened through the invention and innovation. So we have Wi-Fi technology, Bluetooth technology, LED technology, and so on and so forth. When you take into a case of LED, it is initially invented where the diode are able to emit the light. Whereas the innovation is about how do you improve the intensity of the light, for example, minimize the energy usage of the light, And obviously, we have LED technology, which is the TV and many other devices, which is very useful today. And that's the technology. So innovation has been driving lots of part of our life, and is assemble and also enable whatever we would like to attribute to the daily life that we have today. It is to the success. It accrue loyalty from your customer. It provide value in the work that you deliver, and it can be used to improve your sales and customer experience and so on. And lots of invention has contributed to what we have today. In fact, this seminar, if you see around, there's a lots of innovation and invention has contributed to what we have today. I'm sure some of you, or many of you, could be around the world, not necessarily from Malaysia. And I'm talking to you right now. You could see my voice with clarity, I hope, and you can see my video. I may not have the psychological experience with you, but there's enough intonation for you to access my message. So this is all attributed to many great inventors, right? We have Samuel Morse, who came up with Telegram, who came with a Morse code, which in length improved the RF, the telecommunication area. Tesla with radio frequency and the lights. Graham Bell and many more. LED, which is found by the inventor. The World Wide Web by Tim. So all these in conscience contributed to what we have today. And without those, it's kind of impossible to actually for us to interact without taking a flight or travel miles, hundreds or thousands of miles to actually reach each other to listen to each other's perspective. Now we have got great materials for you today. We also want to make it very interactive. Between, of course, you are not able to voice out your opinion in this seminar, but we will have a polling question for you to interact. And the end of the seminar, we also have a Q&A in length of 20 or plus minutes. We would like to focus a lot more on Q&A. It's our hope to address all of you, but with a limited time, we will address the good questions that you have that we will not be able to take up, but we will answer that in the post feedback after the event. So with that, let me set a stage with a poll question for today. Let's proceed with the poll question. Yeah. Okay. The question is: fossil fuel, which is actually coal, oil, and gas, as the global energy source stands at approximately about 80% now. If some of you may not know, yes, it is 80% now. And what do you think the fraction will be by 2030? Can I have a click from all of you? You can actually post your questions, answers immediately, and we will stop in about a few seconds from now, and then we will see the result. Okay, let's see the answer. Wow. Okay, that's pretty much in line with lots of reports by EIA, as well as consultant agencies like McKinsey. Yeah, it is quite congruent or in line with the market expectation, but I like the optimism from 10 people, which is the more than 8%. Well, as much as we would like to minimize the carbon footprint, but well, to be honest, I am a proponent of ensuring critically think about how the proposition of carbon footprint between different technologies, right? I still can challenge the fact that oil and gas are still able to relatively provide affordable, but also clean energy by the virtue of natural gas. So let's proceed. Okay, so oil and gas. In Malaysia, particularly, we have started the oil and gas industry back in 1891, having Shell in with us. And 1909, the James Brooks signing of concession started in 1910 of it drilled in 1910. Now it is known as Grand Old Lady in Miri. So that is dated back to what we are, and it has started even after AD 375 in China, which is called burning water. So since then, the utilization of hydrocarbon in various applications has been grown tremendously. As you can see on the left, it has been multiplied as we go on from year to year. And today we stand about 100 over million consumption per day. So now, if you look into the peak consumption, credit to McKinsey, and most of the resources has reached its peak, except that as what we stand here, to be honest, the oil and also the gas is yet to reach its peak. So this is all depend on the policies and also the situation that we will face from 2020 and onward. And if you look into the changes in the global mix of energy, which we just discussed about 80%, with the current stated policies and such as sustainable development goals, Kyoto protocols, and many other considerations taken into the this slide here. And there is a slight growth to compensate for population growth by oil and gas. And coal relatively remain the same because already reached the peak. But there are pickups on renewables, right? As you can see on the bottom part of the circles. But really, in theory, the compensation by the growth of renewables are definitely not sufficient to cover the steep decline that many people has been advocating about oil and gas. So again, oil and gas definitely not a sunset industry. There is a seasonal challenges is being experienced by any other commodities, which is the we are experiencing now, right? Sorry. So the business driver behind the innovation, oil and gas, just like any other industry, has had greatly benefited from the innovation and technological advancement. So as you can see on the leftmost, in the past 10 years, the AIs, big data, cloud computing, and machine learning has contributed to a great length, and lots of research are still ongoing, where the effect is to almost all area of end-to-end. Very important part of the contribution is actually probably what I can think of now, is not only improving the bottom line efficiency, but also safety, where the man can still work with minimal hazards on the offshore environment, as well as in the plant by usage of lots of applications such as drones. That probably you can also find out in the World Wide Web. An example will be the inspection, with clarity from aerial inspection on the ocean, the drones to do inspection on the plant, which have lots of hazardous gases, and so on and so forth. And today is actually a virtual webinar. Webinar is actually another example of how communication takes place, not only in oil and gas, I'm sure it is also in the other industry. If you can see in the middle part of the picture, credit to SPE, lots of exhibition can be done now virtually. That means people can still interact even with the challenges of able to physically meet each other. And we also see lots of improvement in traditional method, where even energy companies like Petronas have shown keen interest to invest in robotics, farm automation. This is one of the picks from the news. So the business drivers are not only in oil and gas, but also across the board. So the other examples I picked up, just to give a little bit of a background here, Exxon and MIT with Ocean and AI robot to detect sea pages. Baker Hughes, one of the major service provider with NVIDIA, bringing the knowledge and data analytics on various domains. Maersk Oil with a video game on exploration production, with a video game company. We have a Total launched an Agronauts challenge in 2016, as you can see in the picture on the right. It's a brilliant robot enabled with various sensors such as chemical sensors, moisture sensors, the camera that have a clarity of the pictures, and various other sensors that can actually monitor the plant 24 hours a day, and will be able to see through what human being cannot in great detail, day and night. So the examples go on and on. So the technological solutions, innovation are used to drive down the cost to stay competitive. AI robots promise great length and area of interest, particularly to help curb the risk of exposure, and like what I mentioned just now. And the spending has been keep going. It could be a temporary challenges right now, what we are seeing, but many companies, the major MNCs, has shown keen interest to continuously improve the sustainability of the industry whilst able to minimize the impact to the environment. Next. So these are some of the examples within the oil and gas industry. What do you see on the left? Autonomous integrity monitoring. We used to send divers underneath the sea floor to check the integrity of the structure, and that's really hazardous take. And now with the advancement of mathematical modeling and the sensors which able to differentiate the natural vibration from the defects, can provide data, tons of data every milliseconds. So instead of monitoring every 3 months once, now you can actually have continuous monitoring without man intervention. So that's a huge parametric approach in safety. And autonomous subsea gliders, these are very much needed in terms of because we're operating oil and gas, we want to minimize the environmental impact. So these gliders can continuously be maneuvered operated by battery, where it's changeable. So oil spill response, seabed seep detection, infrastructure leak detection, and so on and so forth. We have a digital twin now to minimize the cost of exploring an idea. That means we no longer use a physical asset to do exploitation of ideas. We can have a digital twin of the actual well or an asset, for example, a downstream plant or a process unit, and experiment the digital twin before making changes to the well. That's save a lot of time and cost. And last one here, AI and machine learning used for well construction. It's an intelligent system that continuously learn from thousands and thousands of well and tons of data to autonomously prescribe potential solution in drilling a well and completing with very minimal downtime and very minimal expenditure with a very high efficiency. And it replaces lots of intervention by engineers, and engineers no longer need to actually typewrite and spend their precious time on manual work, but they could use it to make lots of more important decisions. Now, industrial revolution, we cannot spare away. Oil and gas is still will be experiencing what every other industry experienced in the revolution, and where the cyber physical system are more interacted in the era now. So do you know how much data we produce every day in the World Wide Web? I give a few seconds for you all to guess, because I have a rough answer as of time yesterday. Yeah, we produce 2.5 quintillion billion quintillion bytes of data. That is equivalent to billions of billions of billions, because power of 10 power of 18. That's a huge amount of data. But the data is now like a new oil, and the ability of us to mine the data and harness to empower us is the new gold. I think that's pretty much well understood in this modern era. I'm pretty sure that the companies are rallying themselves to capitalize on the new development here. I want to give a little bit of perspective of what is a trend now. So we have lots of innovation related to physical and mechanical interaction. So in the recent trend, as the picture before, in 2008, if you start to do your research, you will realize that actually the most established and organization came out of the era during the downturn of 2008 was mostly what we are currently experiencing right now. Now, to reach the 50 billion users, the airline industry took almost 68 years. That's a long time. And this used to be a very glamorous industry. But it only took 2 years for Twitter. So what it means to all of you and me and every one of us here is that the pace of adaptation and the pace of communication by the virtual system and the data empowered by data analytics is so much faster, with outpace everything else. Well, an AI can outpace us a million times is actually in processing the data, as compared to we process the data in Excel sheet and so on and so forth. And it could be billions times faster in making the decision too. So it is only rightful that we try to understand them. But again, there's a way we need to control also in order to reach out and capitalize on and optimize the opportunity we have. Now, if you look on the left, most commonly known brands, Apple, Google, Amazon, they are the big giants in Fortune 500 too. And these are all online gigs companies. That means the growth actually comes when people are able to obviously use innovation to the best of their capability. And classical story will be Nokia. When you stop innovating, and you will be outpaced. So therefore, that's how important is the innovation to all the sectors, including oil and gas. So let's move on to our first speaker. We have Jai Sankar, who is the Director of Oil and Gas Sector for Chemicals and LNG, Oil and Gas, Chemicals and Energy from MATRADE. He had been instrumental to work alongside with us in oil and gas in Malaysia. And he will be giving a perspective of government in making innovation, digitalization, and exportation of technology as a tool in creating wealth, making Malaysia a developed nation with its people progress on the economic development agenda. And his team and he himself has been instrumental in many areas of local OGSC sector in terms of export mission, capability development, and promote bilateral trade. So without further ado, I would like to invite Jai to give his perspective on the innovation, the title of Remaking of the Oil and Gas Sector. Welcome, Jai.
Hi, Anwar. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Really appreciate that. Just sort of just waiting now for the slides to sort of pop up. But anyway, while that takes place, let me say a few words to touch on some of the stuff that you have mentioned. Interestingly enough, before I sort of started my career as a government officer, I was a journalist, and I was sort of covering IT for the old timers. If you all remember, there was a publication called Computer Times back in the 90s when multimedia super corridor and the likes were a rage. And at that point, we did see a lot of innovation, a lot of talk about innovation and technology take place. And then things just sort of slowed down. Anyway, the slides are here. Let me start off first by saying thank you again, Anwar. Excellent presentation. Also, thank you to the organizers, MOGSC, as well as Informa, who are the organizers for OGA. Of course, our partners, MPRC and others. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to, as mentioned, I'm going to take quite a high-level view, so to speak, on the opportunities for the Malaysian companies who are in the digital services space, specifically for the oil and gas sector. Okay. Now, let me start off by just giving an overview of the ecosystem in the industry. I like to do that simply because, as all of us know, times are bad, right? And when times are bad, you need your friends. And these are, my dear friends, your friends. The Malaysian government, as well as the private sector, they have a lot of different sort of institutions that can play their part. We all sit in different parts of the value chain, but a lot of different kinds of services can be rendered. MATRADE itself, for example, is a national trade promotion organization. I'll have a bit more info on MATRADE later on. But you also have, of course, you know, you have MPRC, you have Petros, you have Petronas, and you have our associations as well, along with our state level organizations. The message here is essentially is what I find sometimes is that there is less uptake on the kind of services and opportunities available as offered by a lot of these institutions. Bottom line is, even if it is above and beyond things like funds, what the institutions can offer is market intel. And I think there's a poverty of market intel in regards to growing market access at this point of time. And it's very acute when there are a period of crisis. So it is high time, I think, you know, I think we have a number of 700 people who have confirmed for the webinar. If you can sort of relook with your engagements with your respective stakeholders so that we can be of greater value to everybody in the industry. Moving along. Okay, hang on, sorry. Okay, sorry. And now this one is a bit interesting. So what's happening is that we are at a period of time where a couple of different blueprints and master plans are being organized by the Malaysian government. I felt that it is imperative that the players in the industry are aware of this, because these blueprints and master plans will define, so to speak, not only the kind of support that the Malaysian government can provide to the industry, but also how the industry itself can sort of reimagine and reinvent their role and their capacity within the economy. One is the National Services Blueprint, which is done by the Ministry, MITI, and the new Industrial Master Plan. These are very high level macro type of blueprints that will take into cognizance of the needs of the industry on a very high level, but they do have subsets for the OGSE sector. And more importantly, what is troubling often is that digital services is not often associated with the oil and gas sector. And because of that, there is, I think, a danger of it being pigeonholed with ICT on a very broad level. That's great and fine, but I think the digital services subsector, so to speak, within the oil and gas sector should have should be able to define its own scope and role within the larger oil and gas industry. So that is one. And then you also have the broad ones would be RMK12 is a 5-year master plan, which will kick in next year onwards. Again, I think input from everybody towards the development of this particular blueprint will be helpful. And then we have another one is the National Trade Blueprint done by MATRADE. This is will be probably more relevant to hardware related subsector of the digital services. And then finally, but definitely not the least, is the OGSE blueprint that is being carried out by MPRC. And I'm sure all the agencies would welcome a feedback from players in the digital services space, so that strategically speaking, we'll be able to sort of support the industry moving forward. Next, yeah. And now here a bit on MATRADE, simply because the title is about global opportunities, and MATRADE is the National Trade Promotion Organization. Let me run through some of the stuff that we do for those who are maybe not too familiar. Our core is export promotion. What we do is we tend to participate in trade fairs. Just to give you a flavor, yeah, we basically take national pavilions in these trade fairs. Next year, we are actually planning to participate in, for example, Turcam, which is on Petrochem, in OTC Houston, and the Caspian Oil and Gas, in the Brazil offshore event, also in EDIPAC. Those are just some of it. And then we'll have other sort of programs as well. Typically what happens is that MATRADE participates in a lot of these pavilions. And I think in the past, as far as we are aware, we never really had digital services component, or at least a significant amount of digital services players who have participated in these pavilions. So perhaps with this webinar, that sort of can change. And then we have what we call export acceleration programs. These are very specific, industry-specific programs, which again, we have never had in the past, maybe digital services. So if we do get enough adequate feedback from the industry, maybe perhaps we can consider a possibility of mounting a mission that is very specific to the digital services in regards to the oil and gas. And then we have something called incoming sourcing programs. What we do in this context is that we fly in buyers from overseas in conjunction with trade fairs here. This year, we have two very key trade fairs. Of course, we are not too sure the dates at this point of time, but it's OGA and MOGSC. Two, I suppose, flagship events in Malaysia as far as oil and gas is concerned. And if there are potential buyers for the digital services, and obviously that will be of interest to us to actually bring them across. And the final one is what we call global sourcing programs. Basically, what we do in this case is that it's low-hanging fruit. We touch base with MNCs in Malaysia, and we basically reach and try to get them access to our suppliers, in this case, the digital service guys. I'm not going to touch too much on the others. We do a bit of cross-border investment in regards to joint venture and collaborations. I think M&A, maybe it's a hard sell at this point in time based on the profile of our digital services companies. But joint ventures and collaborations is something that maybe you might want to reach out to MATRADE, because if you do have great partners out there that you think would be able to give you, facilitate your market access in specific countries, then you probably might want to touch base with us. In a lot of cases, as you all probably already know, you need local partners. Yeah, oil and gas is very famous for a local content, and if you don't have the right partners, then this could be of consideration. So you might consider that as well. Now, how do we do this? MATRADE basically has 46 offices worldwide. We also work with the embassies. And of course, we have our headquarters as well. So essentially what happens is that we reach out all over the world to pull out trade lists and market intel. We do it two ways. One, proactively, we pull out what we think is out there that's relevant to the industry. And the second part is that the industry can actually guide and advise us. Because a lot of times that you know who your partners are, where your potential buyers are, where the potential deals could be. What we can potentially do is that we can open the doors. We have access to some of the largest players out there. Right? If not for anything, simply because we are a government agency, sometimes we are able to get into doors where maybe it could be shut to typically a smaller entity. So what we do is, if that goes through, then we engage in a lot of B2B matching services. Even during COVID, I think during COVID onwards, MCO onwards, we have already done at least about 20 business matching sessions with 20 potential buyers. But none of it, as far as I can recall, were related to digital services. So this is something that I think of concern. And that is why I think, you know, when we had discussion with Anwar and MOGSC and so on and so forth, we felt that it is critical for us to start organizing our digital service providers so that we'll be able to reach out to a potential market and opportunities out there in a very strategic and structured way, which perhaps in the past we have not done so. And the final element of it is we do bilateral pitch. Now, for large jobs, some of the opportunities can be on a very high level. We have access, as you know, just to give you a flavor, you know, we talk to Aramco, we have access to the government level, like for example, Dubai. In fact, we just spoke to the Oman side, which they had something called B2G Global Connect, which essentially provides you access to about at least 20 over oil and gas operators in Oman. So you have to get registered to the platform, and then we basically get access to those. So those are some of the things that we do that I think could be of relevant to the players. Now, a bit on the technologies. I'm not going to, again, deep down. I think Anwar has done an excellent job in giving you a flavor. But I want to take it from a business perspective, because, you know, what we feel a lot of times is that a lot of companies fail to see the business logic of the software or solutions that is out there. So if you're pitching a project and if you don't look at the business logic, then I think there could be a disconnect there. So broadly speaking, I think there's four kinds of business logic that you should sort of structure your solutions with. One is, does it really affect the operating model? Now, this is $1 million question, because a lot of times now, the oil and gas players, they want to reinvent their business model or the operating model. whichever it may be. So if you can make an impact on that, then you do stand a chance. Obviously, in the past, it has always been the case where the oil and gas sector has been a bit more risk averse, and they never really, maybe a bit more conservative in terms of adapting technologies. But today, that sort of has changed. No thanks, I suppose, to geopolitical tensions and COVID and so on and so forth. So if the solution has some level of impact on the operating model, then obviously you're on the right track. Second, it's all about facilitating collaboration. The collaboration can be on various different levels, but anything that can provide solutions to facilitate collaboration, then I think that is one way, obviously, to go. I'm happy to say at least some of the companies probably in attendance now as well, Malaysian companies have gone into that. In the industrial IoT, we have a player called Ventura IoT Sdn Bhd. We are trying to support the company. And of course, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, all these obviously will make a huge change on the industry. And then subsequently your interface and with your clients and so on. And finally, of course, decision making. Anwar pointed out there's a lot of data. We're drowning with data. So how do you make sense of data? Let's jump a bit on the opportunities. Broadly speaking, I think, again, there was mention about SDGs, climate change. I think that would be one of the biggest imperative as far as decision-making are concerned. Apart from what we already know, things related to efficiency and cost reduction, as well as how do you enhance decision-making and manage your risk, remote access and cybersecurity. Right. I'm not going to jump too much on this, but because I think it's already been sort of understood. But what I like to emphasize on is that a lot of countries have put a lot of commitment towards climate change. Here we have the oil-producing countries with net zero commitments, and you have also the non-oil producing countries, which perhaps then would give us opportunity in regards to the other parts of the oil and gas sector. And then from once the countries has defined commitments, you then have on an industry level. So what we are seeing is that on an industry level, some of the countries have gone ahead and they've created blueprint. UK's oil and gas sector, for example, have created a blueprint to decarbonize the sector. Right, so clearly there's that imperative is cascading down on an industry level, and not only on a developed economy, but you also see countries like Nigeria, for example, has also looked into stimulating innovations in regards to managing climate control and so on. And then it drills down. Once you have the industry level, you have the country level, industry level, then you look at the company strategies. Companies have also started doing this. Yeah, this is just a couple of examples. And if you take the company strategies, you deep dive on it, you look at very specific targets by all these companies. So once they've defined it and they've given a timeline, obviously there are a lot of opportunities out there. And then I also want to look at the cost consideration on a country perspective. There's a lot of pressure now on the country to reduce costs. So any sort of applications that can sort of address this fiscal stability for a lot of countries, it would sort of make a difference for these countries. And when you hit the countries, you obviously have NOCs, and it will affect the companies' decision making as well. These are some numbers that I pulled out. I think you can go out and get those numbers as well. But essentially, it basically says that the numbers are growing. I think that's the message out here today. And so you are all in the right track as far as pushing for opportunities concerned. Now, how do we move forward? Very broadly speaking, these are some of the events that we are targeting, that we feel that makes sense for the digital services companies out there. If we look at some of the startups and we have cutting edge technologies, you might want to consider participating in these sort of events, yeah? Because a lot of them have innovation awards. And for us, at least from a branding perspective, for you to break entry into the market, it's great to be involved in innovation awards and then, make a name for yourself. OGA, for example, I think have started off locally in the local scene. They've done the innovation awards, and I'm sure they will continue as well. So this is one way to go. But if you already have a technology and you have decent level of track record, then maybe you might want to consider something that is a bit more mature in that sense. I think one of the better trade fairs out there is called Ingenious, which is completely dedicated on innovation in regards to oil and gas sector. So you might want to consider that, and if you do, get in touch with us. And then if you're extremely mature tech, you feel that you can already go into some of the bigger ones, and we can hit some of the iconic trade fairs. Mind you, all these trade fairs we have access to, and there's some level of intention for MATRADE to get involved and bring companies over. Now I want to jump a bit on, and I've given you the platform, I've given you broadly speaking about the opportunities. What about the financings, right? What are the, where is the money lah? Now, I just want to give you a flavor. I'm not going to go details in this, but as I run through this, you're going to have a sense in saying like, wait a minute, there's a lot of money out there for grabs, which is true. It is very surprising often enough that, the oil and gas sector hasn't gone out and reached out and taken the money. And I can tell you a lot of the other subsectors have gone out, they've reached out to the Malaysian government, and a lot of the government agencies have got different kinds of funds, and they've got picked. Their pocket has been picked by every other industry out there except maybe the oil and gas guys. So guys, it's time that the oil and gas should go in and look at some of the funds out there. These are grants that's offered by, MTDC, MATRADE has some level of grants, MOGSC, and so on and so forth. Right? Apart from grants, these MDEC has some grants as well, MIDA. We will obviously share this information. On top of that, I think if you want to get really good information on stuff like this, please go to MPRC website. MPRC has done a great job in terms of putting together information related to financing. These are some loans. I'm going to jump very quickly. Right? Okay, so a bit on private equity and venture cap, right? So this is, again, it's a space that our guys have never really gone into. The message, at least on our side, what we are hoping that, everybody who's in the digital space especially, would look into this as a point of growth. Because, opting for organic growth is something that is extremely challenging at this point of time. There are funds out there, either PE funds or VCs. What we have done is that we've basically put the information together, and the message out there is this: you don't necessarily just have to look into local funds. There's a lot of different funds out there. And if need be, I think MATRADE will be, my team will be very happy to sort of get us access to not only funds in Malaysia, but there are a lot of venture cap and private equity associations out there. It could be in Japan, it could be China, and so on. So let's not limit us to Malaysia alone, but there are a lot of funds out there we can pitch, because different funds, obviously, as you know, have different sort of focus areas, and we like to sort of reach out to them. These are some of the local ones that we have, not obviously not exhaustive, but just these are some of the ones who has some level of focus on innovations and digital services related. All right, so crowdfunding, again, is an issue of have we actually looked into it? Typically, crowdfunding and peer-to-peer funding is the next one we have never really looked into. So this is an offer that MATRADE can make here. If there is enough support and interest from the industry, we can organize interaction and communication with many of these players out there, right? So that will be probably moving ahead the next step for us all. Again, I think I don't want to jump too much on this. Here, I just wanted to introduce the team. I gave a very generous offer just now. So this will be taken up by this particular team. I think all our contact information will be circulated later on. Please feel free to contact us. Broad message is this, guys. There's a lot of opportunities. Don't think that there aren't. Don't take the narrative that oil and gas is going down. It's not south. There's still a lot of life in the oil and gas sector. We are all of us in the right. I think you're all in the right niche area. So let us together make a difference and make sure that our export numbers grow. Thank you very much. With that, sir, Mr. Anwar, I will pass you back to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jai. We appreciate your insights. And I hope that, many of us, including myself, will be, we have been always reaching out MATRADE, and they've been very much in parallel with the industry direction. So without further ado, before I go to the next speaker, for the Q&A, you can target some of the question for Jai, and you can just mention JAY in the bracket, so we can take it later at the Q&A session, right? Okay, let's move on to the next speaker. So we have Juare, a good friend of mine. He is a very passionate man on the data analytics and what data analytics can do to O&G sector. He came from a very different background, actually. He was a salesman. He was into the legal practice, and eventually he fell in love with data. And he is now the founding member and CEO of VROC Malaysia, and providing remarkable services for enable client to respond to various challenges. So I invite Joare to talk about understanding of digitalization and AI. Please welcome Joare.
Afternoon. Thank you very much, Anwar, for that kind introduction. Thank you very much, OGA, MOGSC, MATRADE, MPRC, and the team to help us pull together this webinar and the work that we've put in. I think everyone's done a great job. Now, just wanted to talk a little bit about VROC. Okay, the speakers have done a great job talking about what's out there. Anwar, you've given a great overview. Jai, you've given a great view of what it looks like from a regulator's view. What I'm going to talk to you about is understanding digitalization and AI. So a little bit about VROC. We started off as an outsourced engineering company, and then we found that clients had a lot of data. They had literally billions of data points. So they needed to understand the data and process the data, and that's why VROC was set up. So I think these are all buzzwords that you've all seen. They're probably in every single brochure about IoT, cloud computing, industrial big data, Internet of Things. The key summary of all this is it's about connectivity, it's about analysis, it's about using artificial intelligence to look at all these things and then come up with some meaningful insights that you can use in your operations. So the biggest issue that we see when we talk to people all over the world is the CEO says to the manager, let's go digital. And the manager goes, yes, boss, good idea. What do I do? How do I implement all those technologies shown earlier to add value to the organization? So most people are aware of the concepts, but they don't know exactly how to implement them to add value to the organization. So what did we do at VROC? We took two or three of the things there. We took cloud computing, we took machine learning, we took artificial intelligence. And what we did is we said, look, let's not go and just put these solutions in there for the sake of them, but let's look at what are the actual problems that people are facing out there in the real world. So one of the things that we found was that most of the engineers were doing exactly what that picture shows. They were looking at all the big industrial data, and they were using Excel sheets and basic trend analysis, and this wasn't working. Now, just to give you an example, the offshore platform that we worked with in Malaysia was running out 50 billion data points a year, even though it only had about 30,000 sensors. So there's no way you can do that on Excel sheets. And engineers also found that at best they would get trend analysis. But when we had our discussions with engineers, we found that the thing which made the most sense for engineers was actually time to failure and root cause analysis. So those are the things that we focused on with the VROC AI. So when VROC came in, what we did is we came up with these user configurable dashboards with exactly that, time to failure, root cause analysis. And if you look at VROC, one of the questions I got during my onboarding is, what does VROC stand for? Virtual Reliability Optimization Control. But it's basically AI for engineers. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do, and then I'll talk about the limitations of AI and what digitalization and AI mean. So these are some of the competitors that we have out there. What VROC wanted to do was we wanted to be easy to implement. We wanted to be the Zoom of machine learning, and we didn't want people to need data scientists. So if you look at some of the other competitors, they're focused on more generic things. VROC is one of those which focus primarily on industrial big data. So VROC takes machine data and it processes it, and it makes it really easy so people can just click on a button and find out when the failure happens. It's also very rapidly deployed, and there's no need for data science people. Now, who were VROC? About 5 years or 6 years ago, VROC weren't really anyone. But in the last 5 or 6 years, we've grown. VROC now have offices in the North Sea, the UK. We have offices in the Middle East, we have offices in Southeast Asia, as well as Australia. So we are also focused on 100% predictive analytics. So we take the entire asset infrastructure from the end-to-end platform, and then we predict when it will fail and why it will fail ahead of time. How does it work? Interestingly enough, people ask us, are we in the business of putting sensors there? When we work in oil and gas, we find we don't need to put sensors. We use the existing data coming out of the software, out of the sensors on the platform already. So we actually take data from historians like Pi historians, DCS, sensor data, weather data. We take binary data on or off. It gets transmitted by a secure file transfer protocol to our operating system, and then the users on-site or off-site get a dashboard that they look at. Now, what do we do in VROC? Essentially, what we do is we take the data from the entire platform. Now, VROC, in the oil and gas space, we can take data all the way from the wellhead right up to the refinery or petrol pump, as long as there's data available and sensors. Most of the time, we're able to take data as long as there's sensors and the data is being transmitted back to shore. So what we do is, based on our very advanced machine learning algorithms, we will work out when there's been a past failure and then predict when the failure will happen in future. One of the things that we discovered with VROC, everyone's been talking about it, the elephant in the room, is that there's COVID-19. The good news about VROC, which wasn't by design, it was by chance, VROC is actually COVID-19 compliant or fully implementable remotely. Now, when we look at other systems out there, the main difference between VROC is we're not a condition-based system. We're not looking at mean time between failure. We actually predict when your compressor, turbine, or well will fail before it happens. So the VROC AI might say you have 10.2 days before your turbine, compressor, or wellhead fails. A condition monitoring software would only tell you it's operating outside of normal limits. Maintenance scheduling tells you you serviced it in the last 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, 40 days, and then you might need to service it again within that time frame. Now, VROC, unlike other software, takes data from everything. So we take your wave height data, your water temperature data, your process data, your operations data, your well data, your external data, because what we've discovered, especially in oil and gas, is that a lot of times the failure is actually due to something around the piece of rotating equipment. So 95% of the reason for the failure of the rotating equipment is not due to the rotating equipment itself, but something around the system. And then VROC tells you what are the likely reasons for failure ahead of time, which so far we found no, the competitors haven't done it, and we were able to achieve single source approval from one of the major national operating companies in Malaysia. Now, this is an example of what we've done. This is a sample dashboard that the clients get. It says what are the factors are on the left-hand side. These are the factors causing the failure. It was a gas compressor motor. So we said it was lube oil header pressure, which was causing the failure, as well as the fact that compressor was on manual setting. We were also able to predict, if you look at the line moving up and down, that's our actual prediction of when the failure would occur ahead of time. So the engineer is able to see this and say, look, I need to change the lube oil header filter, and I need to make sure that the compressor is on manual setting. This particular compressor was tripping very regularly, and this is a compressor failure before VROC, the compressor failure after. This slide was presented at a Society of Petroleum Engineers Expo client. And there's a slide showing the value creation of VROC within 4 months. It was able to save production loss of 53,000 barrels. So a lot of people ask me, where do you implement AI? Please don't implement it just for the sake of going digital. Implement it to solve a real life business problem that affects your P&L and bottom line. So 53,000 barrels saved. Obviously, this is a while ago, so it was valued at about 3.5 million US. But if you look at compressor availability, it moved up from 60% to 100%, and the flaring target and flaring fines were reduced accordingly. Now, this goes back to digitalization and AI. So I'm going to bring this to a real life scenario. This is my Netflix algorithm. A lot of people tell me that AI is actually the Terminator. AI can predict everything. AI is all seeing. It's the Terminator, seeing everything and telling you in advance you should kill this person. But AI isn't really that smart. We've got to understand AI is only as good as the data that you give it. This is Netflix. It is a billion-dollar company. And my daughter did not log off. My daughter, Julia, as much as I love her, did not log off my account and watch these. So by the way, those are the Netflix recommendations for me. And if you look, Boss Baby, SpongeBob SquarePants, and A Christmas Prince, The Royal Wedding, instead of Too Fast, Too Furious, which are the kind of things that I watch. So there's nothing wrong with the Netflix algorithm. There's nothing wrong with the AI. The issue that we have here is garbage in, garbage out. So AI is limited by data. You won't believe how many times I've had people tell me, I want you to look at this problem. By the way, we don't have any data to substantiate it. So it needs data, it needs sensor data, it needs accurate data. Otherwise, the AI can't function. That's a sample of what you can get with good data, with AI implemented well. This is a sample dashboard of what an engineer would get. So it would have a warning ahead of time before they fail. That's what the dashboard said. Gas compressor motor 2 will fail in 4.32 days if you don't do anything. When they click on it, it has a whole list of why it will fail. So in summary, understanding AI has limits. It cannot do everything. It cannot do things without data. It cannot do things without accurate data. Now, AI and machine learning is still not super intelligent. It still needs engineers to look at the results, to process the results of the AI. What it can do is to process the 50 billion data points or however many trillion data points that it has a lot faster than the human mind can do. It also doesn't have biases. So understanding what AI can do is very important, because a number of times I get questions, we have no data, what can you predict? You'd be surprised how many times I get that. I would recommend, if you're going to do a digital journey, you're going to implement some AI, please focus on real life problems. Don't just do something because boss says make it digital. Ensure that you get results. Another thing that I think Cik Fadlan is going to talk about a little bit is working on the mindset of the teams, because a lot of accepting new technology, people often forget it's the mindset. And I believe Cik Fadlan will be talking about it from the view of Petronas, which is a very large national oil company. How do you change the mindset, together the process there to get it moving? So since then, VROC has been approved by Petronas as technical readiness level 7. And it's ready for implementation. That's our journey so far. From a startup, we've become a fully fledged player in the digital space, and we're now able to compete against the big boys. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, go back to basics. Whenever you want to implement a digital solution, AI, machine learning, cloud computing, any one of those big buzzwords, please make sure that you look and see the real life problem that you want to solve and understand what the end game is, as well as don't ever forget to work with the people. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to pass it on to the moderator now.
All right. Thanks, Juare. That was a good one. But I think you put a recommendation of your daughter, not yours, huh? But I'm sure you know how to go to the setting and remove, right? Anyway, we welcome Fadlan, which is our next speaker. He is the head of innovation for Petronas, and he's instrumental in spearheading an important mission in Petronas, which is open sourcing for innovation through Innovation Gateway. He will share a interesting story from his perspective of being in a Fortune 500 NOC, where innovation has been centric to Petronas. Is one of the values that they can differentiate themselves and position in the future. So let's hear from Fadlan. Fadlan, the floor is yours. Please welcome Fadlan Nik Abdulaziz.
Hi, thank you, Anwar. Thank you very much. Open my screen a bit. All right. Okay, can we have the slideshow, please?
Okay.
Right.
Fadlan, maybe you can enable your video. Yeah.
Ah, okay. It's already on. Let me try again. Stop video and start video.
That's okay.
Can you guys see me now? Or no?
Not yet.
Not yet, eh? Well, okay. I'll just continue
Yeah, go ahead,
speaking
no
then.
worries.
Ah, I can't see me, yeah. What's wrong? Stop and start again. Still nothing, eh?
No problem. We will put your handsome parents in our post feedback form. Make
Okay,
sure
okay,
everybody.
okay. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's okay.
good.
This is the
Oh, thank you.
glitch of
Thank you very much, Anwar. All right, so welcome everybody to the first innovation webinar by MOGSC. So today I'm going to talk about the Petronas point of view on innovation, what we call innovation in Petronas. I'm going to start with our big demonstration of innovation, the Petronas floating liquefied natural gas, in which we have two of those, PFLNG 1 and PFLNG 2. PFLNG 1 is currently in Kebabangan, which we started sailing off in Kanwit in May 2017. It was part of our Kumang cluster phase 1 development. And PFLNG 2 is in Rotan right now, in Block H on offshore Sabah. So this is our demonstrator of how innovation can bring Petronas forward. It's bringing a plant in the middle of the ocean and trying to monetize the gas from the sea. So we're looking at about a production of 1.5 million metric tons of gas coming from each of these PFLNG. So you can imagine 1.5 metric ton is equivalent to roughly about 700,000 cars. So we are producing roughly about the 700,000 cars per year based on our two vessels. So multiply that by two. That's how much gas we can actually monetize from the sea. So we know now that the traditional business is not going to cut it. So innovation will be bringing us forward in terms of producing liquefied natural gas. Let's move on to the next one. As you know, we have been involved in our racing team, the Petronas AMG Motorsports with Mercedes. We've been champions for the past 6 years, but things have not been that rosy since the start because our involvement with the Formula One started off in 1996 with Sauber Petronas Engineering, where we were involved in the development of the NE01 engine. There is also innovation in play, where we try to change our market to go into engine development and commercialization, as well as tagging of our lubricant business. Now moving forward, 20 years going on, and we've got our first World Championships. You can see innovation takes some time to bear fruit. For us, it took about 20 years before we can become world champions. And continuously we became world champions for the past 6 years. I was in the original team back in 2002 in Switzerland when we started racing with the Formula One team in Sauber Petronas. And we can see that it was a very competitive environment. So what I can learn from there is the ability to innovate is key in order to make the car faster. So if you can imagine your company is like the Formula One car, innovation is the only thing that can make the car faster and lighter and can reach the checkered flag before anybody else. So innovation is our advantage in pushing the company forward. We can move on to the next page, please. Now, did you know that, there's not so many companies that actually can last 100 years in organization. So for us, we've been established in 1974, August 17 is our birth date. So we're going into our 46 years coming in. So we're still far off to reach 100 years. So the big boys like Shell and ExxonMobil has reached more than 100 years. So in order for us to survive, innovation is the only one of the key factors for us to grow and survive and actually thrive across the next 100 years. So I'll move on to something that is more relevant to you after this. Let's go for the next page. So I'm going to talk to you about Innovation Gateway at Petronas. This is our stepping game into innovation. It is a platform for Petronas open innovation created to facilitate technology collaboration in the areas of technology, especially on the deployment and replication in Petronas. And we use this platform to accelerate pace in deploying these innovative technology solutions. So in a company like mine, in Petronas, we can see that the mindset is key, like what Juarez was mentioning. When we talk about innovation, everybody wants to do technology deployment and development. However, not everybody has the mindset in order to accept change, because when we talk about innovation, it's all about change. So especially in the oil and gas industry, I mean, I hear what Jai was saying about giving opportunities for companies to grow. Unfortunately, the oil and gas industry, I think, in my opinion, is the most conservative industry amongst all. If you can imagine, if you want to try out new things, if let's say the new thing is actually a pool of water, the oil and gas industry will probably wait for 50 people to start swimming in that swimming pool before we can actually put our foot inside the water. So that's how slow we are in adopting for technology, as against to agriculture, against to communication, and anything else besides oil and gas. So this is one way for us to accelerate pace in deployment of technology in Petronas, as well as encourage this ecosystem so that we can have an environment where the collaboration is made transparent and easy between Petronas and the industry players in oil and gas. Let's move on to the next page. So Innovation Gateway is actually a way for us to do two big things. The first one is to inform the industry players on our biggest pain points. Our pain points that affects our bottom line, that affects across the business, upstream, downstream, and gas and new energy. Gas and new energy, sorry. So when we have a systemic issue in terms of a pain point, we issue out a technology challenge. That is the first part of Innovation Gateway. So it's a crowdsourcing initiative. It's an opportunity so that we can jointly develop the technology with the technology challenge winner. So we run a competition. We open up the technology challenge to everybody across the group, and we actually promote it to our social media and our website in Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. So you will participate and we will select the right winner. We will do a mock-up test before we select the winner. We select it as the finalist and we will do an interview, and at the end of the day, you will become the winner. So the winner will have a chance in doing two things. One is to further develop that technology, to enhance the current technology, the winning technology, to become better, faster, cheaper, lighter, more accurate in what it actually intends to do. The second thing is we will have an exclusive arrangement with the winner so that you can continuously deploy and replicate the same technology all across our businesses in upstream, downstream, and gas and new energy. So for now, we have published 11 technology challenges, and we are at number 11 right now. Number 11 is organic acid corrosion prevention and mitigation. So I urge all of you, all 700 of you, to submit your proposal to our upcoming technology challenge and participate in our technology challenge, and I hope that you can also win this challenge. The submission deadline is on the 31st of July. Let's move to the next one. So I mentioned before, we've done about 11 since July 2017. I'll go through each of them. The first one that we launched, the TC number 1, our first embark and our first adventure into technology crowdsourcing, is monetization of associated gas from offshore flare. The winner is a local company from Kuala Lumpur, Transwater and MTC Engineering. For the tech challenge number 2, the field inspection tool for composite overhead repair, the winner is a company from Australia called Sonomatics. For tech challenge 3, onshore hydrocarbon recovery from sludge, the winner is Time Marine Services, a company that is based in Cheras. For the fourth one, in our efforts to combat CUI, the winner is KMZ Energy, a company based in Sentul. Can you go to the next one, please? For the sixth, a special one, because this is a competition that we only open to local university. And we found the winner, it's UKM, the team Khawarizmi, for the autonomous drone to perform UT at height. For number 7, the solution for crack-resistant liquid tight and maintenance-free tank sump and dispenser sump. The winner is also a local company. The company is called Atlas Composite Technologies. For number 8, flue gas SOx emission reduction. The winner is a company from the People's Republic of China. The company is called Jiangnan Environmental Protection Group. So we also have other challenges that is currently under evaluation. So we have number 9 and number 10 currently in finalization. And of course, I mentioned to you, number 11 is currently open for your participation. You can find all the information on our website, petronas.com/innovation. Let's move on to the next one. Now let's move on to the second part of the Innovation Gateway, the technology marketplace. This is where the technology challenge do not address on. We open up a platform for you to submit new technologies that you have into a supermart, which we call the technology marketplace. This is our single submission point for external technology providers such as yourself to bring new technology offering for Petronas consideration. So during our MCO times here, this has been a fruitful way to get new solutions from the market, because through this single platform, we managed to collect close to 700 submissions so far. And we've put in roughly 160 into our technology catalog. So roughly 1 out of 4 actually been approved and put into our catalog. So thank you for all of you that have been participated so far. And we look forward to all of you to submit here so that we can get the right approval and put it into our technology catalog for us to use it. So it's fairly easy. You go to the website, register your company, submit the technology, and upon submission, we will receive a prompt that will be transported. That submission, the submission will be transported to our assigned group technical authority, which will be reviewed. There will be a feedback session with you, either face-to-face or through online meeting, or maybe through digital. You will get further requests on further information, and you provide the clarification from there. If the group technical authority is happy or approve the technology, then it will be parked under our technology catalog, which will be accessible to all of our Petronas staff. The deployment will happen after that. We will identify the right area or the right location for this deployment and replication. From there on, then you will get a chance to have the deployment being done in Petronas and hopefully further replication for us to create value from the deployment of this technology. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so for this technology catalog, so a few of our friends here that's involved in this webinar have been involved in our catalog as well. So VROC AI is currently in the catalog. It's been piloted in Dulang and also replicated in Duyung in Peninsular Malaysia. For Mecaflex, they have been appointed as the VDP Innovation and Technology recipient, also from the Innovation Gateway at Petronas catalog. There's also another company called Eureka, whose technology product is to stabilize, which has been deployed, replicated in Boko and replicated also in Boko. This is a classic example of a pilot being replicated across upstream. So we've got the submission in 2018. It was approved and put in the catalog in the same year and immediately got deployed in SQO Boko. There were 5 locations. Then we did the monitoring and assessment on the performance, and it got replicated again in 2019 in Peninsular Malaysia. Further on, in 2020, it got also another program for replication, also in Boko and in West Lutong. There will be a lot more replication in 2021 or planned for to stabilize. So that is the environment that Innovation Gateway at Petronas is offering. An opportunity for you to submit the technology, put it into the catalog, and have it deployed and replicated across the business in Petronas. So right now, well, we are close to 160. Hopefully, with more submissions from you, we will grow further the online catalog. there's still a lot of space that we can actually fill in from the catalog. There's still a lot of avenues whereby we don't have the solution in the catalog and we have the pain points readily available. So my suggestion is for you to become friends in our social media accounts in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and you will get notification when we issue new technology challenges. You also get an issuance whenever we post any new videos on Innovation Gateway at Petronas. And that's about it for me. So over to you, to our moderator.
All right, thank you, Brother Fadlan. Let's take a very short few seconds break with the poll questions. Okay, let's pop out the poll question now. Okay, I think that's, let's see how much respond in order to assist Fadlan to improve his services to the not only audience but the community in oil and gas. Okay, let's look in the answer. Yeah, quite a good response. So you got a lot of work to do, Fadlan. So yeah, that's a sort of 50-50. I think along the way we can definitely do it. So thank you, Fadlan. Thank you for your insight. I think it is quite known in the industry that during the first part of 2014 to 2018, Petronas did announce the pillar of collaboration, pace, and going digital as a very important element to differentiate themselves and sustain. Yeah, and the second part of 2018 to 21, capability development was the key. And we are very known that technology as a differentiator for Petronas to position themselves in the future. So likewise, we hope that many companies will be benefited. And of course, it's not necessarily for giving out the solution to Petronas, but also to improve our own self as well as our organization. Okay, we will move on to our last speaker now. IR Azhar Zainal Abidin. He is the managing director for Pro8 Sendirian Berhad. He is an example of technocrat, passionate about innovation and technology. And I have to admit that we really wanted him to give a punchline to all of you, where he were able to use innovation as a means to make money. I mean, to do business, right? Where he strongly believed in it. He took it from scratch to what it is now, and he created his own unique boutique space and displaced many other giants. So we would like to hear the storyline in the pretext of our book today, Innovation. So he'll be talking about technology adaptation trend and the outlook towards the emerging areas. And his punchline is a local player, a small one, with innovation can go a very long, great miles and can achieve great milestones. Thank you. Here you go. Encik Azhar, please take your floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Anwar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. And good afternoon to all honorable guests and audience. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Cik Anwar, for your kind introduction. First and foremost, again, my name is IR Azhar Zainal Abidin, founder and managing director of Pro8 Sendirian Berhad. Today, I will share some insight on an experience on how we embrace innovation and technology adaptation for the oil and gas and emerging areas. Let me briefly introduce about Pro8 in general. Pro8 is established in March 98. Currently, we have about 120 staffs. I wanted to share on how we use the technology to overcome the adversity and challenges and establish ourselves using innovation as key driver to create business opportunity. Let me begin with how we start our journey. We started our journey experience by venturing into designing the manufacturing of the mechanical seals. Mechanical seal is actual facts very critical component in a pump and consists of really precise and elaborate component to design a build. In the year 2005, when we started, it was virtually an impossible task. The challenge is like famous story of David versus Goliath, actually, versus OEMs, a small company like us. It talks about fearless and facing enormous challenges. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. If you can see that back in year 2005, if you look through the landscape of mechanical seals, nobody ever believed that we can take up these challenges with zero funding, zero technology, and zero market share. To most people, they will abandon this outright. As what Alexander the Great quoted, there is nothing impossible to him who will try. We did develop strategies and approaches from a different perspective. Understanding the two important factors in any business, innovation and marketing, that will translate into revenue. We formed the R&D department to spearhead the innovation and development in design technology, as well as business approaches. This is quite totally different from most approaches by other companies. Based on simplicity and harmony, every problem faced by our clients is an opportunity for us to innovate and offer solutions, sort of like a blue ocean strategy approach. In other words, there is always a way to do things better. We must find it. So the first ever successful innovation was Flexical, a patented technology that solved the issues of too many components, too complex and too many failure points. Flexical is an innovation that reduces a complex design into a simple and robust design. This is actually our first successful innovation that created our very own technology, a sort of pride for the nation itself. Further continuation of that innovation, based on a constant problem of sand erosion issues, we have created the first cyclone separator that can detect the amount of erosion in a cyclone separator. The cyclone separator has a safety device developed by our local engineers. This is first in the world, and it's patented to show that we can develop more technology to overcome existing problem. Continuing on from this innovation, the tripeller was developed to overcome the issues of impeller manufactured by a conventional casting method, which unable to handle sand erosion issues. Sand erosion is a major problem actually in an existing old field and platform. Tripeller is our best technology, employing the concept of building the impeller by precisely machining all the parts using our CNC. And this allows us the ability to use exotic and better materials and to build an impeller that can overcome sand erosion issues. We have successfully deployed this technology in an offshore platform. Mean time between failure has increased up to 5 times better. There are many more innovations that we have, but I think we do not have time to show it all here. But having said that, we have to keep innovating and finding new innovation, because in order to be sustainable, innovation must keep moving. Looking into this strategy, one of the key takes and policies that all startup companies, entrepreneurs that want to start developing and innovate as part of their business culture, they must adopt the following approach. In Pro 8, we call this championing failure. In any innovation and problem-solving issues, failure is a must. We had the honor to present this approach back in 2016 at the API Exhibition International Standards, organized by the American Petroleum Institute. how do we go about the approach of championing failure? Before that, before I explain further, I have actually a question to the audience. Do you have a system that record features for lesson learned and implement improvement and innovate? I think I'll let the poll. Would you kindly, the audience, answer whatever the poll says? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Chair Anwar, can I have the result?
Right. Let's look into the answer. There you go. We have about 24% yes, and 45%, half saying partially, and 30% is saying no. Right.
Right. Okay. In actual fact, I think the failure is actually simply an opportunity to start innovating and finding even better, efficiently, and more intelligently. That is actually the fact. And also failure is nothing more actually a learning opportunity. Let me explain to you on the traditional culture. This is what the championing failure is all about. Now, traditional culture on handling failure, staff and everybody that made a mistake or an error, there will definitely be scolded, and the infamous 4-letter words. I used to do that as well, but not now, hopefully. This will make the staff afraid actually to report in any mistake and to learn from the failure. A lost opportunity actually. They will hide it as much as they can, which will lead to failure and mistakes keep repeating. This must be avoided. So what actually championing failure is all about? This is the important thing. Our approach. We told everybody in our organization that failure is part of the innovation process. To enforce this new culture and framework, not enforcing, to improve our policy. For each failure reported, we will provide monetary, actually, reward in value of 50 ringgit for each report. For each of the failure, we will go through a process of investigation, finding solution, risk management, implementing and monitoring the results, be it engineering, HR, business, marketing, sales, manufacturing, etc. Everybody is improving day by day. In summary, in our statistic, you can see that we have done so far after more than 10 years. The total numbers of failure reported is actually a lot, about 3,650 cases up to date. Reward paid out approximately at 180,000, but across 10 years is actually the cheapest way you're going to fork out to get your lesson and lesson learned. Also, and the amendment that we have changed is tremendous. Every single line for the last 10 years is quite a lot of revision we have learned. That is actually given us that innovation, that the result has transformed us from a small company actually into a company that able to compete head to head with international players. That is our take on championing failure, that I think everybody must have it. The one that does not have anything want to do with failure, I think you have to start thinking of adopting the championing failure. Finally, talking about Pro 8 up to now in year 2020. From year, remember 2005 when we started with zero experience, with nothing to be proud of, we have transformed into a reputable technology company. In year 2020 now, we can proudly say that we have captured great majority of the market share of mechanical seals in oil and gas sector. And with more than 20 patents and technologies that can be exported out actually. In summary, this is actually, I want to talk about our footprint in Malaysia. Also that our current international footprint covering several major countries, that the technology we have is actually applicable to all these countries. Also, we have established the precision and extensive manufacturing facility. Overview of our product and services, we include mechanical seals and rotating equipment with our new technology and patented design. Our contracts in hand throughout the years and showing continuous support from major oil companies embracing innovation and technology. Over the years, we have improved ourselves with accreditation and certificate through hard work and through championing failure. One of our proud moments is that the achievement in obtaining certification from the API specification Q1. This is very difficult to achieve it, to have the global quality in our company. Numerous intellectual properties, I list out some of these here, and patents. We have been developing ongoing development also on new innovation and technologies. This is the list of numerous recognition awards over the years. This is a result of continuous improvement and contribution from our championing failure policy and approach. Project success has been recognized throughout the year. Successful innovation, innovative and technology company that keeps innovating and keep developing new technologies. Finally, lastly, this is my short advice and parting words. Please do not fear the unknown. Innovation is a must, and failure complements it and part of it. This will help you move forward and overcome adversity. I think thank you so much for the opportunity to share the journey of our company. Innovation is the way forward for you to obtain sustainability and becoming a champion in your areas. Thank you very much. Pass to you, Reza.
Thank you, Jazza. Thank you very much. Very nice insight. Very pleasant to hear from you. That's all the motivation we need. Really, if Thomas Alva Edison gave up, let's talk about, not even, I thought he did more than few hundred. So even if he gave up within the tens, I think we're going to have a big problem today. Or probably we invent a little bit later eventually, right? So I think giving up is one of the major problems we have today, where that's one of our advices is that, innovation require patience too. So we have to give a full commitment to innovate or eventually come out with a final solution. And of course, in unprecedented times like this, innovation actually is the breathing line, if people can know how to capitalize on it, right? So let me do a wrap up here, and then we will go to Q&A. So I think I have some interesting remarks on the concluding here. So, just think about it, right? Transportation, let's talk about transportation. Uber is a software, a tool company, but they don't own any car. Airbnb never owned one of the biggest world accommodation provider, but there's no room. Law profession actually is changing quite a bit with the IBM Watson. So you can get a better legal advice, more customized to you, all done by AI, computerized, and the terms and conditions probably more accurate to your situation. And in medical, the cancer diagnosis or the pattern of cancer is a lot more accurately predicted by algorithm and also the image processing tool. And we have autonomous machines, self-driving cars, and so on and so forth. Plenty of those. Insurance company will have massive trouble because without car accident, I hope the accident reduced with all the improvement, and that means that it can be cheaper, right? The real estate, people can move further away because we have a faster locomotive, And we actually recently has been talking about flying car too. So, so we have a lot more options now to travel. So we hope that the pollution also will reduce with less of more efficient travels. Yeah, and the example go on and on and on. So what do we have today? If you see the most left, the job of the pilot as well as the cameraman is gone. It's replaced by a drone or a flying machine that can have a better image, more images per seconds, and surely enough that it can capture the moment that exactly we want, and we can process it across the world and put across various software to get the message that we want. And the AI is really revolutionizing the world. I'm sure oil and gas is not surprised. So what is next? Where are we heading? What are the possibilities? And what are we able to predict what is next? So really, there's no point, contemplating what's the oil price and what possibly tomorrow. But we know what is the need today, and eventually we also need to have strong belief in what will be the problem that we will solve. Believe me, there was a poll questions related to this, whether chicken and egg, whether technology come first, solution later. But if you strongly believe in a solution and come out with a technology and it can solve some problem, a good solution definitely will be picked up. So the investment and profit and so on and so forth comes as a byproduct of doing a good stuff, which is a good technology, a good solution, a good invention or innovation. So with that, let me go to my final slide. Okay, so what do we do now? Do we create a pool of data scientists to all talk about digital giant? Yes, our education system need to be geared up towards this. And we need to motivate business unit to continue to invest even in a challenging time, because that's where the future is. If you stop R&D, stop innovating, I think then eventually it's all backpedaling. So shifting traditional business to become enablers for revolution, which has been already shown by the previous startup in 2018, and time yet to tell what's going to happen this time around. I'm sure a lot more interesting solutions going to come up. So don't worry too much about AI replaces man. So AI and robot cannot do what we do. We have a feeling, we can love human being, we can cry, and it's all real, and not everything can be replaced, right? So but we have to be smarter. So in terms of the allocation of roles, right? So we have our own role, and we use the machine to do what they are best at. So there are benefits and damages that we need to balance, and the critical success factors are really the one going to drive, especially the security and privacy and ability to control these changes. So if disruption is coming, it's not when, but it's how quickly it is, and how well we are prepared to face it. So that conclude the presentation so far. We're going to go for Q&A. Before the Q&A, we have one poll from Juare. Can we pull up the poll question, please? Okay, what is the biggest roadblock to AI implementation in your organization? Number one, mindset. And then we have an option of budget, internal process, and lack of internal champions. So I put up to the floor, and let's see what is the answers. Yeah. Okay. Shall we see the answer now? We don't have all of the above. Right. So I believe that in priority, it's almost equal to each other. So the internal process supposed to be the lowest. That means we are ready for change. That's what tells me. So the mindset could be a challenges, but not the process. So we try to make it conducive. Okay. Thanks for the polling question and the answers. So we're gonna go for the Q&A session now. So we have about 15-20 minutes for the Q&A. In fact, I think we already received a bulk of Q&A now. So I think many of it has been answered by all your speakers. You can continue your discussion later. But I would like to pick one of those, I think, that cut across many people, right? Many of us actually. Technology. It's a very interesting question. It's a very valid question, because it's going to define lots of things going to happen in coming years, right? chicken or egg? I think I understand what you mean. First, it is a support, is a profit or an investment first. So which one comes first? So is it which one is more important when talk about innovation and technology? So what is the motivation of people who are investing? Because there's definitely a risk associated with it, right? I have given my view. Probably I will leave it to the speakers to jump in. Yes, please, Juare, Azhar, Jai, Padlan, please.
Okay, Jano, thank you very much for that. I think at the end of the day, we need to go back to basics and find out what is the business problem that you want to solve. Never do technology just for the sake of putting it in. So it's always got to be focused on a real life business problem that you're facing. That way, everyone is going to be on board to want to solve it. So if it's predicting when a machine goes down ahead of time, that's something that they'll want to do. If it's looking and seeing why the moisture content on an offshore platform is high so that they can avoid a top-up of glycol, that's something that everyone's going to want to do. There's got to be something which is costing enough money. You've got to focus on a real-life problem that is expensive, not something that's costing you $10. It's got to be something which is costing you $500,000. Then everyone will really want to do it. So you've got to look at it from that point of view. You've also got to be realistic, because sometimes when you say, look, I'd like to look at the underwater submersible pump, it's got no sensors, no data, there's no data from anywhere from that infrastructure, then to put all those sensors underwater will just not be cost effective. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. You need to make sure there's business returns. You've got to get an ROI on it.
Well, for me, Anwar, on Petronas' point of view, we look at technology as a driver, not only for growth, but addressing our business pain points. So for Petronas, we look in technology in 3 different focus areas. The first one is operational excellence. The problems of today need to be addressed by the technology available for today. The second one is competitive edge, the things that we need to do more development, that we can predict for the problems of tomorrow, that we can come up with a solution for tomorrow. The last one is future positioning, where we step out from our current business and go into new growth, where technology can become a business source of income for Petronas.
Okay. Any more feedbacks from?
Okay, I think a lot of companies have this major problem. I understand that money is the most important criteria for you to move forward. But even in terms of innovation only, you must see it in a way that it will create value. But first you're going to start is always when you supply services or supply items, or great majorities, the agents, all these workers, that is your continuous financial support for you. But do not stop there. You take your step number 43. The step number 44 is always listen to your customers. What is their problems, their issues, currently whatever they have? There is the opportunity for you to innovate. This is you going to go step ahead, whatever it is. So basically, if you only invest, do not just invest and do fundamental research. Like university, all this, it will not work. You must be fast, attack what is the problem you want to do. Is actually a research, applied research. So that is what you want to see, because you have to remember, in any business, if you do not have money to continue on, don't ever think you want it. You want to do innovation also, don't ever think if you don't have money. But first, foremost is that continuous supplying the service as what you're doing, but always keep improving, always attending to problems, always innovating. The failures is actually giving you the opportunity. The money will come in because you're going to resolve the problems. The clients, the customers will support you. That is my take.
Thank you, Azhar. Yeah, Jai, you have anything here?
I will just take a slightly different perspective. I'm just trying to rephrase the question from a export perspective. Is it a demand or is it supply first, right? So from our experience, has been this has been, I suppose, the biggest challenge. Often, what happens in our case is that we sort of have technologies or product services for that matter, and then we are trying to sort of market that, and then we meet clients, potential clients, who basically say, "Hang on, that's not what I want," or it requires further refinement and customization and so on and so forth. So I think the perspective ultimately moving forward, and this also ties up to the fact that in the oil and gas companies are also very risk averse and so on, is that I think they would appreciate if there's a level of customization, and as Joris also pointed out, whether it really addresses their core problems or not. I think in the written answer, I also pointed out there is an opportunity for a lot of companies now, in the context that contracts are being renegotiated. That essentially means you're sitting on a particular contract, but now it's costing you more than what you initially anticipated. From that perspective, now you have to spend in order to save. Right. So there is a level of imperativeness, a need for some of the companies to go and invest. Also, I pointed out things like climate change and so on, simply because now, at least for the bigger boys, there is this commitment that has been set on a country level. It has cascaded down to the a country level, a company level, and now they have to do it. But even if they need to do it, now they're going to scout around and look for stuff that really makes sense for them in regards to their bottom line. So I think ultimately is the onus is on the technology players to make sure that whatever that they have makes sense, and also is able to sort of customize to the specific needs of the potential clients.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. So there's one more question you want to go, but just add on to that is, see, in today, wherever you are sitting now, just look in front of you. Whatever you see in front of you, everything you touch and everything you experiences today is a result of great minds and the great invention. And many of this invention was not invested. Many of it actually came through free, but at least for initial phase. But there are also invention came with the notion of changing the whole game. Apple is actually probably an example. And Apple came in the space where Android, the traditional phones were established, and they came into new phase. There was no user experience to feedback, right? It's nobody gonna give a pain point. Okay, we don't know what we want. It's something new, and we liked it. So there are also invention as such that you can actually use invention with your own creativity and imagination to create market. So this is where it's cut across all age. You can be a student, you can be a just graduate, you can be a MD like in Azhar. You can create the space actually, right? So that's another angle that you all please look into so coming into innovation.
Lastly,
yeah, one question.
Lastly, Anwar, I want to add one other thing. Maybe it's not just technology, chicken or egg. It's also about mindset. And you probably got to start with mindset first. I mean, as I said, I'm going to go out there against the big boys. Fadlan said, I'm going to work within my oil and gas company and make it easier for people to do things. So by changing processes. So a lot of all this technology implementation has to do with human mindset and changing mindset and believing the impossible is possible.
Okay. Yes, thank you. We want to take one more. It's an interesting question, but I think that there's many questions around it that will sum it up together, right? So Google's revenue from, recently Google stopped helping O&G companies to find oil. That means data analytics, right? The AI. I think Joare is smiling. I know why, because he can step in, right? So so do I. That's not an issue here. Now, it could be many reasons, commercial reasons, and so on and so forth. But also, be careful of what you read out there in the web. Not everything is validated, right? So lots of negative perception could be there. But I tell you what, oil and gas here is to stand and to provide affordable energy in the future. The reason being is that many people misunderstand that oil and gas is all about pumping to the car and the car emits CO2. That's all about it. No, it's a lot more than that, right? Actually, if you look around you again today, just look at yourself. Everything you do today is a lot to do with oil and gas. The dress you wear, there's a coating process in the dress that use petroleum products. And makeup products, a lot of it are still exist based on petroleum products. The plastic that you are sitting now, the chair, is actually also made from PVC, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of other material technology. Your mobile phone that you are holding in your hand, the mouse, the laptop casing, everything you see around is actually related to a lot of petroleum derivative products. So if you want to displace them all, I tell you, you're going to have millions of new invention and innovation to replace, and the affordability and feasibility is separately, totally a separate case. So sometimes too much of news around may not be correct. It need to be validated. And there's also a notion of environmental damage, right? I can tell you from my experience of being 18 years in the oil and gas, highly associated with Society of Petroleum Engineers. With my deep conscience, I can tell that we are very responsible corporate citizen in ensuring that whatever damage we create, we try to undo it as much as we can, right? And it doesn't mean that the alternative energy, such as building a dam or a solar, is out of the way without any damage to any environment or even without any byproduct. They all do have a solid chain of damages. So you really need to read in detail, but it's always in a relative term. But again, in today's world, we have to ensure that there is affordable energy for people to keep moving, and the civilization should continue and it must work. So until then, we are here to stand, and of course, the technology and innovation going to support. And I think if you all have some idea about it, I welcome from speakers too.
I think the oil and gas industry is there to stay, even though our energy consumption is decreasing with new technologies and new energy. But if you look at even fertilizer, that a lot of that comes from byproducts of oil and gas, as you're saying. And AI will always be there wherever there's data, wherever we want to do either human or industrial equipment. So if you're even going to look at windmills or wind farms, they all have machines. And one of the companies we work with looks at predicting when the bearings will fail or white etching cracks will occur on the wind turbines. So in that case, that's an AI area. Whether Google is in it or not, in my opinion, is irrelevant. Where there's data, where there's an industrial application, where there's a business need, there will be a player if it makes sense.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Maybe I'll just add on. Obviously, the industry will survive. I think a bigger concern here is with the companies involved. I think that is where the real challenge is. And typically, 90+% of our companies are smaller boys, right? So the challenge is, can they survive the next, say, 12 to 18 months and so on and so forth? Yeah. And I think this is where something that serious thought has to be given. Even from a technology perspective, a lot of our technology players might, I'm sure they do have cutting edge technologies, but do they have the financial resources to last the pace? Absolutely. And I think that is why I was maybe I was trying to emphasize on the fact that sometimes we tend to be overly reliant on organic growth. But if you look at the business model that has been used by the other companies in other industries, like new economy guys, they don't, they go for inorganic growth. They look for funding, right? And they survive and they go for market share. They're not necessarily making profits, right? But they survive. And once they survive and they've secured market share, then they prosper. So I think one of the challenge that from a mindset perspective, at least from a service provider, from a company perspective, is that, the oil and gas sector definitely will survive. But for us, for the individual companies to survive, they really do need to look at the financial models. I had an interaction with some associations in the past, and for example, one association indicated they went ahead and they put two small companies together on a JV model so that there's shared resources across the board. So I think we all have to sort of consider, more innovative, maybe financial models, operational models, and so on and so forth, just to write off these current challenges so that, once good times are back, we are there ready and we can shine. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jai. Just to add on, Jai, to everybody also, there's a good suggestion around from the floor. to really train a younger generation to have a right mindset in the future, train in the AI and innovation. So that's specifically to you, Jai. Yes, the speakers, there's any Fadlan? Yeah?
Yes, well, on Petronas' point of view, I think this is a challenging time. This is an unprecedented challenging time. I'm not saying that Petronas is doing good. We actually are not doing that well with the black swan and grey rhino environment. I'm just telling that all the companies here, we need just to put our heads together, relook into our business model, try to find ways to survive through these challenging times. On my personal opinion, I've always been an avid fan of local innovation. I always fight for the small boys who want to grow big, especially in Malaysia. So I do support all of this initiative. If you have any new ideas that you would like to get support from Petronas, please get in touch with me. We'll try to make it work.
Right. Thanks for the positive, positivity. Thank you so much, Fadlan. So I think we are almost coming to an end. Unless we probably have, since Fadlan, you are there. There's a question on you. What they are trying to tell you is that the audience, to foster more collaboration, innovation. The pain points, the data, sensitive or non-sensitive data. Apparently, it's good to be shared more so that the players can work out more in a lot of solutions and so on. So that's probably a concern coming from the floor. Just to take back all of us, everybody have lots of. So anyway, I think I would like to close the session with the concluding remarks I have. So we can't answer all the questions, but we're going to take it. Many of the question has been already answered. I'm going to take a minute or two to plead to audience here. Just a quick introduction to MOGSC, and I would like to play something from you guys. MOGSC formed in 2003, advocate the OGSC industry here in Malaysia, and also provide platform to the international community too. So our presence is really critical to ensure the sustainability of the local industry here. And the members come across about more than 500 over members organization, covering upstream, midstream, transportation, and downstream processing. And today's webinar is a part and parcel of the contribution from MOGSC and OGA, right? So next. And we represent quite wide representation on the industry to ensure all the bits and puzzles are connected. So we connect the dots so that everybody have seamless experience of growth and able to sustain and exist in the space of the industry. Okay, next. So we also, in turn, me myself, I did work quite regularly with the people speakers here and the rest of the community. Some of you are already probably an audience. We created a brand called MOGSC Innovation Award. Me and my colleagues really worked hard for it. We also created a OGA Innovation Award. So these two works year back to back to promote, newly born, the innovators born in Malaysia, or innovation that collaboratively developed between Malaysian innovators as well as outside, from the outside. And we tried to give them a pitching space, more strategic location for exhibition. And we rush the audience from VCs, investors, the government agencies, so that hoping that they can catch on and latch to one of the assistants to grow further with the innovation they presented. So with that, we can visit www.mogsc.org for more details. And we will send you a feedback form if you would like to be a member of MOGSC. And we actually a non-profitable organization running through the charitable donation from the people. So if you would like to contribute through our feedback form, I would like to plead for it. And if you can help us to continue to provide the services to you and in the goodness and goodwill of the people, please do so. With that, thank you so much. We here to stand to support you, and we will in turn request your support. So thank you so much for your attention and great interaction we had. It is our hope that we garner your interest. Very importantly, we have two objectives. I hope it is met, at least in awareness of the challenges faced by the industry and how innovation technology really come into the context and how well this has been happening, and we would like to promote you to continue to do so. And it is our best that at least this awareness level will instigate your actions. If you have any more specific interest, you can always contact us. You can find all of us in this LinkedIn. We are quite active in LinkedIn. We also got lots of details in your Q&A session just now. Of some of you would like to touch in base with VROC, also in Azhar here. So don't settle for less. Continue to innovate, and you can get so much more. So please don't stop, and have a good stay and stay positive.
Mr. Moderator, I got something I want to say before we
Yes.
leave.
Yes.
Yeah, just want to give a shout out to all the Liverpool fans here
There
for
you go.
winning. We are the champions of England. So congratulations to all Liverpool fans who participate in this webinar.
I agree, my friend.
Okay, good time will come for us to celebrate. I know the current challenges is not going to be lasting, just like any other challenges we face in our life. Thank you, bye-bye, and see you in next webinar, and we have more plans and more events to come. So please look up for a LinkedIn of OGA, LinkedIn of MOGSC, and LinkedIn of any of the speakers. We always collaborate and network to provide you the best content and latest information. Bye-bye now, take care, all of you, and thank you so
guys.
much
Thank
for
you.
beloved audience to stay
Thanks,
in our
guys.
phase
Stay
two.
safe.
Thank you. See you again.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you once again, and we look forward to having you with us once more. Do check out our social media websites for recordings of the webinar, along with more happenings to come. Stay well, stay safe. Thank you.
Looks like the attendees are feeling eagerly not to leave. They want to stay longer with us.
Wow.
Really appreciate them staying longer. Thank you.
Darkness, sincere.
Hey, Fadlan, nice touch, bro. Nice touch. Hey.
Liverpool jersey, Fadlan.
Hey, how do we get to?
I'm planning for a Liverpool party next week in MATRADE, no?
Very good, very good. Don't forget to invite me, yeah. Invite me, yeah, Jai.
Excellent, guys. Excellent.
So
Hey,
how do
Anwar,
we
thanks
answer all
a
this
lot, bro.
question, huh? Banyak soalan ni. Mana?
You have to type lah tu, Cik Fazlan.
Itu lah macam.
Reply satu-satu tu.
As a norm of gratitude, we try to address them cohesively and send them.
So many questions, I tell you.
Okay, very well done. Thank you for all of you.
Thank you, Anna.
Derek,
Thank you, guys.
Derek, thank you for you as well and your team. We really did quite a remarkable journey. We started the journey. It's a long way to go.
Yeah, man.
Great job, guys. Derek, Ruslan team, great job.
Thank you, everybody.